I think what happens when you have political dissension or dysfunction, and that's really what has happened in Tauranga, and I know there's some ex-councillors in the room, but I think even they would acknowledge that the council hasn't functioned well for quite some time. It's not just the last 3 years, it hasn't functioned for a long time. What happens is the staff hunker down, and they just go into their shells, because in reality they're fair game. Although from what I've seen, some of your councillors have no problem yelling and screaming at one another, throwing around personal. But normally it's aimed at the staff, because polite people don't criticise one another in public. But you can criticise the staff because they can't answer back. So the staff tend to hunker down. The first thing we had to do was really build confidence in the staff, that we wanted to learn from them, we challenged them, but we wanted the information, we needed the information quickly, in bite-sized pieces that we could digest. I think at one stage, remember, we had a 350-page blooming agenda put in front of us for our first meeting.
I think it's close to over 400.
Over 400 pages. And I dropped it on the table at the start of the meeting. I said, I never want to see this again. And there was sort of stunned silence in the room, because they had been used to producing more and more and more information. So we had to do away with that. They had to learn to trust that we could go in and find information if we needed it, but actually we wanted to lift everything up to that strategic level. Tell us what are the decisions we have to make, why we have to make them, so that we can understand them, and allow us to go and find the extra information that we needed to make those decisions in our own way. Don't present us with those big lots of paper. I have to say I've taken them back to paper because I don't like sitting in a meeting and having electronic screens between me and the people. I have also reorganised the furniture. And secondly, I just can't chair a meeting of a decent size agenda using technology. I like paper. I like to write on it. It's comforting. Anyway, so that's the first thing you do, and that allows you then to work with the staff to sort out the big decisions that need to be made. And one of them was about the council staff. How do you expect your council staff to work properly when they're scattered over 3 buildings? And one of the first questions we were asked is, do you want to stay here? Because we're in this building on this floor and there's only about 10 people working here. The rest of the building's largely empty. We went down to the floor below, we had to put masks on, and on the wall was the calendar left from when the staff moved out, December 2014. And those staff are in 3 different buildings. It's costing $1 million a year to move staff in between those buildings. That's lost productivity and the cost in time. And to say nothing of the hassle that the public who want to access council staff go through when they go to the wrong building. That's because a decision wasn't made as to where to put the administration building. So that's in the long-term plan. We've made that decision. That's going up in Devonport Road. The state of your CBD is the second big issue that doesn't have to be raised with us. Stephen and I took a walk up the road. Never seen anything quite like it for a city of 150,000. I understand there's a stack of plans like this on what to do with the CBD and the foreshore. There's been a lot of hooey going on for a long time and not a lot of doing. So those are the things you start unpicking, and it's about giving the staff confidence, and it's about then, as Stephen said, getting out and about, talking to as many people as we possibly can. And we have extended that invitation to previous councillors and the previous mayors to talk about, what they think we need to be doing. and getting the confidence of the community. It's a long answer, but it's a big job.
Thank you for that. I suppose I'm pleased that Stephen raised benchmarking across different councils. We've set up a business advisory group. It's from business leaders and decision makers across a number of different sectors. One of their key feedbacks from our last meeting was that it's a lot easier to do business. It seems to have a different attitude in places like Hamilton and Selwyn and other councils where they want to get stuff done, as opposed to dealing with councils here. Some of them brought an example where they had to employ a former TCC staff member just to deal with the lingo and understand how the machinery works. So it's quite a risk averse from their perspective. How do you assess the staff culture at the moment, and can that be addressed in the next 18 months?
Well, look, I think one of the things we have to understand is a relatively new team in the executive at the council. And so this creates a tremendous opportunity to enable them to grow into that kind of engaging group of officials that I think we'd all like the council to be. I do think that some of the problem has been a symptom of what Anne has described, this kind of defensive nature that, when you are under attack and you're not clear what direction you're going, you do tend to become defensive and therefore not so communicative and proactive as a result. And so it is important, and is one of our key agenda items, is to change the language but also change the approach. Consultation in the past has been about, well, we don't know what reaction we're going to get when we go out with this. We could get attacked from a lot of different points of view, so let's try and answer all the questions ourselves before we go out to consultation, and we'll come out with this bulletproof plan, and then we'll go and consult on it. And of course the immediate reaction of everyone is, well, how did you get to this point, and why didn't you talk to us earlier? We could have spoken about this or that, and this doesn't address my concerns or issues. And I think that's a kind of symptom of the world that they were operating in. Recently there was a consultation process run for the Innovating Streets program out at Mount Whanganui. And it was all about proactive engagement with the community up front first, before any decisions were taken. And there was a tremendous kind of workshop kind of approach involving the whole community. And they came up with some concerns, some criticism. Actually the community was quite divided on what the right solution was. Some were very pro the idea of closing down the streets and making it walking, cycling. Others said, what about all of the people who come to the bay who want to be able to drive their cars and enjoy the beach and bring the kids and the surfboard? We need car parking, we need access. So there was a strong division. In the end, we've decided not to proceed with the idea, but explore another approach that many people raised, which was, wouldn't it be fantastic to extend the boardwalk down the beach and enable walking and cycling there, and look at maybe speed controls and whatnot to make it more amenable for people cycling through. So there's another potential solution in the wind, and we're going to explore that. Now, the good thing about that is that while a whole lot of people that like the idea of innovating streets lost their position, it wasn't supported, all of them, without exception, said we really appreciated the process that we went through here. And in fact, we had the Mount Whanganui Residents and Ratepayers Association chair come along to the council meeting and say, this is the way we want to do business in the future, this is the way we want to engage. And so I think we are at a tide change here, and certainly, the staff, no one in the staff turns up to do a bad job. They're all highly motivated to really make a positive contribution. And if we can allow them to be creative and engaging in the process, then I think you'll see a significant change of direction.
Okay, so stop beating up staff and they might come out of their shell. I suppose I think there is still some work to do around some of the planning and policies, and I know the city plan's coming up for review, so there's still a little bit of work to do from a governance perspective. Shad, I will come back to you, but I was just wondering with Bill, Bill can answer a question here around, there's been a lot of talk from from staff around coming up with non-traditional and innovative funding We've reached our debt ceiling. This town's pretty much based on debt and rates. There's been lots of talk of using private sector and even using things like New Zealand Super Fund, and as well as our own local wealth trusts. Where are we at with all that work? Because we can't rely on debt alone.
Certainly, during my latter days in smart growth, commissioned work which is about to be reported to us in terms of what some of the range of funding opportunities are. And I think it's looking at a whole range of sources in terms of funding for infrastructure and for projects. It's about how we engage with the government as part of that. I think one of the mantras that we used to operate here was that let's line our own ducks up first and sort out what contributions can be made. And if I use the Tauranga Eastern Link as an example, where the Tauranga City, Western Bay, the Regional Council agreed in terms of making their contribution, and then engage with the government, and then at the end of the day we have the Tauranga Eastern Link. So it's actually about making the local commitments first, however they're funded, and having a very open view in terms of what some of that funding might be. And they might be public-private partnerships or other types of arrangements in terms of various projects. And it'll probably be a horses for courses approach in some of those funding arrangements. But agreed, just can't in terms of increasing the debt. And we have the interesting situation we're actually having to pay off debt so we can actually take on some more debt in other areas in terms of projects. So I think on behalf of the Commissioners, a very open mind in terms of what some of those funding arrangements could be. And we might need to take some of those more perhaps non-traditional sources in terms of making progress.
Great. Finally shared, smart growth. No one can really fault the cross-boundary planning issues, and that smart growth has been the tool to try and address some of those cross-boundary planning issues. Questions is really around the delivery, and I don't think anyone's pointing fault at smart growth, but it's more the delivery of whether it's councils and all the different partners. What are your thoughts on some of these cross-boundary issues that they're not going away anytime soon? How do you see the way to navigate? Because a lot of our people here are working across boundary issues and with different planning, different infrastructure funding and other means. Is this something that this commission is set to address?
I don't think we can't deliver what the city needs by ourselves. We do actually need the support of our sub-regional partners, whether it's Western Bay, the Regional Council, and Tangata Whenua. In order to deliver what we need to work effectively and collaboratively across boundaries. So, we do have, as an example, for Tauranga City, we do have a land supply issue. And the areas that have been identified for future growth, Te Tumu and Tauriko, and even across the Te Papu Peninsula, have all got serious constraints. So whether that's land use constraints, funding constraints, we've all got, huge challenges. So, and there are, various pockets within the city that could enable intensification of those kinds of opportunities. But some of the solutions are not necessarily within Tauranga City. We need to be thinking a lot more broader than just within the boundaries that we've been set. And we're having really good conversations with Western Bay and with the Regional Council about where these opportunities are, because Tauranga City cannot solve this by itself. I think that's probably the key point. Whether it's local government, and we also need the support of the business sector. We need the support of Tangata Whenua in order to make these things work and make these long-term decisions.
Okay. Yes, no, we're definitely facing a shortage of land, particularly industrial land. There's a risk of in residentials coming close to industrial land and having reverse sensitivity issues, and whinging that places are operating at night time and other things. So we need a safe place for those industrial areas to operate.